Hi, my name is Audrey. I've been a professional mediator with Mediation Nation for the past 5 years. We're making this series of videos to teach young mediators what mediation is and how to be an effective mediator. Before we get started demonstrating some tips for mediation, it's important to clarify what mediation is, and equally important, what mediation is not. Mediation is a process where two or more disputants in a conflict sit down with a neutral third party, the mediator, in an attempt to resolve the conflict, reach a mutually agreeable solution to a problem, or facilitate more effective communication. In most cases, mediation is a voluntary and confidential process. Mediation is not arbitration. The mediator does not have the power to impose a solution on the parties, and in most cases, will not make suggestions as to an outcome. Unlike arbitration, a mediator's role is not to judge the action of the parties or determine who is right. Mediation is also not counseling. The goal of mediation is not to repair relationships, but to assist parties in addressing conflict in a productive manner. Mediators organize an agenda, assist disputants in communicating effectively, and help draw up an agreement if one is reached. Most mediations are initiated when one or both parties approach the mediator for his or her services. Doing a comprehensive intake interview with each of the parties individually will help you better prepare for the mediation. Ask each party what they hope to get out of a mediation and find out what their best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or BATNA, is. Make sure they fully understand what mediation is and what it is not. During your intake interviews, you can gauge emotion levels of the parties, as well as conflict intensity, which will help you get a feel for your strategy during the mediation. When talking to the parties, try to get them to move beyond their positions or superficial statements into a discussion about interests or underlying needs. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for coming in today.
Hi, thank you for meeting with me.
So, why exactly did you approach me for mediation services? What's going on?
Well, I'm really concerned about the situation at work. I've just started a new job and I really enjoy the job and everything that it has to offer me. But my supervisor is really, I don't even know how to put it. He talks down to me. He uses sexist terms that I really find offensive to, let alone a working relationship, but just a relationship in general with another person. I find it really hard to do work with him and to get work done because he's always criticizing things that I do and not taking suggestions that I make seriously. I think of myself as a real professional, and I don't know how to work under these circumstances.
Okay. Why is this job so important to you? What is it about it that you enjoy?
Well, it has a great salary, which I really like. It's a nice raise from my last position, and they offer me a lot of flexible time, a lot of sick days, vacation days that I often need to take because of personal reasons with my family at home. And it just seemed like a really great company to work with as well. I wanted to make a change from my old company, and I thought this was a logical next step.
Okay, great. So what do you hope to get from mediation? If everything goes perfectly, what would be your ideal outcome?
Well, I would really like to continue working at Sonic. As I said, it's a great company, but I would also like what I see as harassment to stop.
And if the mediation doesn't conclude with your ideal outcome, what are your other options? What would you do instead of working at Sonic if nothing changes?
Well, I've been in contact with my old company, and they've offered me a different deal than when I was working, a little bit more from what they had been paying me. And if things don't change here, I see that as really my best option to go back to really go to a working environment where I feel comfortable. Sure. To interact with people and to have my ideas heard.
Okay, great. So if that ends up being the outcome of this conflict, what would you be giving up by going back to your old company?
Well, I mean, my old company, while they have offered a slight raise from what they used to pay me, it won't be as much as there is here. And there are less sick days and vacation days, which, as I said before, I really need often. But, you know, I made it work before, and if I made it work before, I can make it work again. I can't deal with being talked down to and being put down on a daily basis at this job.
Okay, you've mentioned these sick days a few times now. Why are sick days and vacation days important to you?
Well, I have a son, and he has cerebral palsy, so I often have to take him to the doctors for his appointments, for therapy, and for things that require me to miss work sometimes.
Okay, great. So you've mentioned the supervisor, I think. Hi, Stephen. Thank you for meeting me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, I guess. I don't really know why we're here.
Sure. So a woman on your team, her name is Kathy, she's come to us and requested mediation services. So that's why we reached out to you. She has raised some issues, especially dealing with kind of how she feels she's being perceived as a member of the team. So I wanted to go ahead and get some information from you. Would you be willing to go through with a mediation to try and improve?
Yeah.
Sure, great. So what is your relationship with Kathy?
Well, we hired her a few months ago, and we were really excited to bring her on because she had a great experience, a great background for the previous company, and we thought she could really benefit working with us as a whole, and we could really benefit from having her on because we love hearing new ideas and bringing everybody together and talking as a group, and you know, that's how we really thrive in this marketing firm.
Okay, great. So do you understand what mediation is?
Not really, no, this is the first.
Sure. So our services here are meant to bring together people who are experiencing some sort of conflict. And that can be any level of conflict. It doesn't have to be a manifest conflict. You don't have to have had a fight. But there's some sort of tension going on, and clearly Kathy feels as though there's some sort of conflict that exists. So my role as a mediator would not be like a judge. I don't listen to both sides and make a decision. I just help you guys have a conversation and hopefully try and come up with a solution that will be mutually agreeable to both of you.
Great.
Yeah, so going forward with this mediation, what would be an ideal outcome for you?
We would love to keep Kat on the team, but she just doesn't seem like a really good fit right now because she's constantly downing ideas in meetings. She doesn't show up to half of the meetings that we've had, and she's only worked there for a month. So we're kind of starting to question her, you know, if she's really dedicated to our team or not, and if she really wants the job. So, I mean, if this doesn't work out, we're going to have to ask her to leave us, unfortunately.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. If the mediation doesn't work, what would you do moving forward? So
yeah, we hate to see her go, but...
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much, Stephen. Do you have any questions for me about the mediation process?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, well, my office will be in touch with you, and we'll try and schedule this mediation for a time that's agreeable to both you and Kathy.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks. Once you have conducted your intake interviews, schedule the mediation in a neutral venue at a time that is not unduly inconvenient to one of the parties. If possible, you should arrange the mediation room in an inclusive way. Know your audience. You don't want to go to mediate a conflict between troubled youth wearing a suit and expensive jewelry. Similarly, you don't want to show up to a mediation between major corporations wearing clothing that makes you seem unprofessional. This concept of knowing your audience should also be applied to your language and word choice. The parties need to be able to put their trust in you and feel comfortable enough to open up about emotionally charged issues in your presence. At the beginning of the mediation, you should welcome the parties and provide a brief introduction. In your introduction, you should make sure to cover confidentiality issues, time constraints, and establish ground rules if you think they would be helpful. Hi guys, thanks for joining us today. So I know that I've talked to each of you individually, but I just wanted to formally introduce myself. My name is Audrey. I've been a mediator with Mediation Nation for about 5 years now. I've handled dozens of conflicts. Mediation Nation is the organization that's been hired by Sonic Industries to handle human resources disputes. So we've had a working relationship with your company for almost 10 years. So I know that we covered what mediation is during each of your intake interviews, but I just wanted to ask again if you had any questions about the process that's going to happen today.
No, I don't think so. I'm all right.
No.
Okay, great. So I wanted to cover confidentiality. Everything that happens today will be confidential. You may see me taking notes. You can ask to see my notes at any time during the meeting. And when the mediation is over, I will destroy the notes. So they will not be seen by your supervisors, anything of that nature. The only time that we would have to break confidentiality is if we hear any information regarding illegal activity or if either of you makes any threats towards the other person. So we've scheduled a 2-hour block for today's session. We may not reach an agreement in that time, and that's completely okay. If we need to schedule another session, that's fine. Some mediations don't ever end up reaching an agreement, and that's okay too. This isn't a process specifically to reach an agreement, but more to facilitate a conversation between the two of you. So is that okay with you guys? Do you feel like 2 hours is a good time period?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're kind of busy today, but
Okay, well, we'll try and get you out of here as quickly as possible while also giving the conflict the time that it deserves. So before we go on, do you guys have anything that you'd like to say? No? Okay. So now that we've covered basic introductions to mediation, I wanted to move on with ground rules. Are there any rules that you guys would like to guide your mediation today? Some common ones that people sometimes invoke are not speaking over another person. If you feel like interactions in the past have been filled with interruptions or someone talking over each other, that's a rule that we could invoke. We could also make it a rule for our mediation that there's no cussing, no foul language, or no yelling. But it's really up to you guys. This is your mediation, so whatever you feel is necessary, we can set forth right here.
Well, I really like both of those rules, especially the first one. I think that's really key to this discussion today.
Okay, so the first rule was no talking over the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like the way that that's phrased, or would you prefer it phrased a different way?
I think that's all right. Yeah.
Okay. Stephen, are you okay with that rule?
sure.
Okay, and what was the other rule that you...
I think no bad language and no yelling would probably be a good ground rule to set as well.
Okay, Stephen, are you okay with that as well?
Yeah, whatever she wants.
Okay. Are there any rules that you would like to put forth, Stephen?
What are some other normal rules?
It really depends on the situation. Sometimes, we have a confidentiality rule on my end, but you guys don't really have that. So if you would prefer a confidentiality rule, with Kathy, we can put that down on the rules too, that whatever happens in this room stays in this room and you won't discuss it outside.
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay.
We don't need all the other employees finding out that this is happening.
Okay. So the 3 rules that we've written down are no talking over the other person, no bad language or yelling, and no discussing what happens in the room outside of the room. Are you both okay with those rules?
Yes. Yeah.